Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. This week, housing is our focus. In just a few moments, you're going to meet the partners for a new multi-million-dollar housing development slated to serve students and later the general public in Port Hastings. You're also going to get an update from the chair of the Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition, specifically Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat. And we have two presentations from the most recent meeting of Richmond Council's Committee of the Whole, from Gina MacDonald of Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health regarding physician recruitment in our area, and from Terry Smith, the CEO of Destination Cape Breton Association, with an update on Cape Breton's tourism prospects. But we begin with a special announcement that took place Monday morning at the cafeteria of the Nova Scotia Community College's Strait Area Campus in Port Hawkesbury. There, Collindale Business Solutions representative Damien McInnes joined forces with several partners who are going to work with McInnes on developing new multi-use housing developments in Port Hastings. They'll initially serve the student population at NSCC, but as time goes on, they could also help the housing market in the Strait area, including developing new affordable housing. So let's take you to the cafeteria at NSCC Strait Area Campus for this special announcement right now.
My name's Damien McInnes. I'm the project director for, we're calling it Straightville.
If that sounds more like a community name than a housing development, that's partly because Damien McInnes and his partners with Independent Investment Nova Scotia are creating a community of sorts not far from the Nova Scotia Community College's Strait Area Campus on the outskirts of Port Hawkesbury. They're committing to $100 million in spending on the project. It's designed to take shape on roughly 53 acres adjacent to the A&W restaurant in Port Hastings. But it's mainly being built to serve students at Strait Area Campus just down the highway.
Our property management group will also have a shuttle for the students, so that'll kind of alleviate some of that pressure. That's not going to do it all, but the property management company will have a shuttle, like a van, to bring people back and forth. But Strait Area Transit, definitely a partnership we can develop, if not, and taxis and whatnot. So, but yeah, definitely.
McInnes says there's also a possibility that the Port Hastings Development Group could work with the Municipality of the County of Inverness to develop an active transportation trail, similar to the one developed by the town of Port Hawkesbury to connect Strait Area Campus to the main business core on Reeve Street.
That active transportation piece that was already utilized with the town of Port Hawkesbury, I'd love to see it make its way to there. That's a discussion maybe Inverness County could. There's may or may not be an economic development officer here that could pass that message along. That'd be ideal. Start that conversation. But I think it would be a very interesting piece to it all. It's I've seen people walk along that road, and it's quite scary. There is a bike lane, but I mean that can only do so much. So, but definitely something we'll look into.
And as the Port Hastings housing development gets ready to take shape, with shovels expected to go on the ground this spring and the first wave of new rooms being available for rental in September 2024, McInnes is confident that he can keep up a positive relationship between the project's financial backers, its construction crews, and the Municipality of the County of Inverness.
Well, they're very well aware that their engineering department's head first into this already, so we're working with them closely, as well as the local councillor, Catherine Gillis, for District 6. She's been very helpful and supportive of the project. As well as the CAO, Keith McDonald. He's been great to deal with as well. So we're lucky to have people working with us and moving this in the right direction.
As part of the official project launch for Straightville on Monday morning at the NSCC Strait Area Campus cafeteria, McInnes brought in several of his partners and contributors to the construction that will be taking place over the next couple of years. Here's Corey Stewart, who was the project manager for Lindsay Construction, explaining how the development will take shape in Port Hastings.
Right now we have the 5 11-unit buildings, which totals about 220 bedrooms total for the development, and those are all as of right, and those are currently working through design right now. So that's the first phase, will be these multi-res buildings, and then the second phase, which will require some rezoning, would be the single-family homes or the townhomes further up the hill. So Those would probably be wood frame buildings and most likely a panelized construction. So based on that, it's the unit layouts are a 4-bedroom unit with a common kind of kitchen and dorm room. It's a very economical design. It's just 4 quadrants of the same thing, and then each unit has a ring of bedrooms on the perimeter with internal living space in the middle. And yes, these are the 4 buildings right at the bottom. So this is the end of view here. It'll be right there, and then one up at the top as well.
Hopefully we'll get an entrance point in here beside the A&W. Obviously that's the view, hence the name Straightville, looking at the Strait of Canso.
So that's what the Straightville buildings are designed to look like, but how much will they cost? Here's Damien McGuinness again.
It's average rates that they're charging here, so anywhere is between $1,200 to $1,100 to $1,200, everything included. So that includes your transportation, the utilities, rent, and some other amenities as well.
While Strait Area Campus currently has 46 on-campus housing units, the college has been looking to expand on this number for quite a while. Similarly, the town of Port Hastings and surrounding municipalities have been dealing with housing issues for several years, including the need for affordable housing and the development of housing units to accommodate a growing business sector. That could account for the full house at the Port Hastings College's cafeteria during the project launch on Monday morning, including municipal and provincial politicians, construction union leaders, the chief of Port Hastings Volunteer Fire Department, executives with the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, and several other members of the local community. This show of support even caught some of the project's developers off guard.
I didn't expect so many people here. Last time I came to Cape Breton, I only saw a few people, and I kept asking him if it was just 10 people or 20 people living here. So nice to get to meet all of you. We're just talking, and the community college, and they have issues with student housing, and I stopped. I said, that's an opportunity. Wherever there is a need, there's an opportunity to solve a problem. Whenever entrepreneurs know this, if there is, wherever there's an opportunity to solve a problem, then there's an opportunity to add value. And because it's adding value to a community, and one thing I didn't also mention is that I'm also an academic. I have a history of teaching in several universities across the UK, South Africa, Nigeria. I taught in universities. I own schools back in Nigeria. So education is my thing. It's just my thing. And public-private partnership is my thing as well. And so if you add public-private partnerships, adding value to communities, adding value to, and then education, it's something that I'm really, really interested in. So the idea is to do this and be part of this amazing community, and to add value, as much value as we can, and to do the best that we can.
We know for sure 2 major issues we have in Nova Scotia as a whole, arguably the health and of course accommodation issue. And then when you then layer this whole thing around student accommodation, which, it's important to diversify our economy, diversify our population base. So we have all these, students here coming from across the province, or even within the province, or even abroad. But then you have some of the, issues around the accommodation. So how do you solve it? I think it's, we have to adopt an approach where all stakeholders come together and offer whatever they can bring to the table. So when this whole opportunity came about, we were like, let's explore. And, we started looking into options and all of that. And then here we are. For us, we think this will be the beginning of so many things. And we're really counting on all of you to work together to support us, because, Damien has been sort of the inlet for us. But I think there's a lot of energy in the room. We've seen people talking, and we want to walk around, talk about how, give us ideas in terms of how we can support, how we can build a community, and hopefully we can deliver a successful project and open up more doors for more business, more investment, grow the economy and contribute in our own small way. Nova Scotia has really been good to me. I moved there 9 years ago, and I have my own business, and all of these whole pieces. So I'm grateful, and I'm honored to have that. So I think for me, this is a huge opportunity for myself and the rest of the team to contribute as well. And then together we can do big things. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to engaging and working with everyone.
So, as you've just heard, Monday morning's launch event at the Strait Area Campus cafeteria was as much of a pitch for financial partners for the Port Hastings Development Group as it was a description of the timeline and the actual buildings that will be housing students and others over the coming years. And while they don't intend to speed up the timeline for fear of putting up inferior structures or putting lives in danger, the project's partners are implying that if more partners, government or otherwise, come on board to help with the $100 million cost, the entire project could be completed ahead of schedule.
Ideally, it would be great to have all 4 units, and yeah, like that's the discussion.
Yeah, but realistically.
Yeah, realistically,
it's
yeah,
going to be phased.
one at a time. Yeah,
It's going to be phased. Yes.
Phase 1 would be about $25 million. Phase 2, 3, and 4 will the entire project would be about $100 million. Some partnerships with the government would be ideal. However, private investment and a partnership with the governments would be great.
So for projects like this, you're typically looking from the private sector side. I mean, we would like to raise most of the money from the private sector side, but like you said, you need a bit of government support. You need government support. So you're never going to be able to call figures and say that, yeah, but it's going to be private sector driven. But hopefully with a lot of government support as well.
It kind of coincides with the other developments, and that's kind of what we're looking at too, how big this should be or can be, and what kind of collaborations we can make in partnerships. So ideally, we'd like to have them all built if we have the right partnerships in place. But it's going to be a phased approach.
Among the potential partners for the Straightville housing development in Port Hastings, heavy industries in nearby Point Tupper that are hoping to capitalize on green hydrogen and green ammonia.
I've seen it constantly that the Strait is always going to be the area that was the next big thing, and I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, but it's happening. So it's an exciting time for our area. With the numerous developments around green hydrogen and ammonia, expansions to offshore wind energy and onshore wind energy, amongst numerous other things, and the spin-off opportunities that come with that. And this is another spin-off opportunity. It's not a small-scale development. We're definitely into the multi-million-dollar project. There's a huge opportunity around training individuals for our growth that's going to be happening here. So, in order to grow, we don't want to fall into certain other areas in Cape Breton where you bring students in and no accommodations for them. So we kind of want to get ahead of the curve a bit here and really help with employees and students. So that's the goal. We want to work with obviously the NSCC, but also companies and organizations throughout the region here to make their projects successful.
In the meantime, the Nigerian-born partners from Independent Investment Nova Scotia that are working with McInnes on the Straightville development feel that their efforts could spark economic development and more housing in the Strait area beyond what's already being planned.
We've had quite a lot of meetings, of course. We set out wanting firm contracts to offtake, but they have their limitations. We understand that, but they are eager for us to. They are pushing us to go to 2024 to start early. So they're as eager as we are to get it started, and we feel that once we start the student housing bit, that the others would come because it's a large expanse of land, so there's so much that can be done, so much in phases.
And in front of an audience at Strait Area Campus that included Budladek First Nation band councillor Mary Johnston, McInnes and his Straightville housing development partners pointed out that some of their new partnership opportunities could involve Mi'kmaq communities and other cultural areas.
I'd love to work with First Nations communities, and I know there's some African Canadian communities close by that would love to partner with. It's definitely top of mind, to tell you the truth. So we're lucky to have Budladek here. And I know Wacoba was invited, so the hopes are to kind of partner with the two closest communities, and those would be our two closest communities.
In the meantime, the wheels are already in motion for Straightville.
Everything seems to be in order. Our permits are currently being developed right now for the development. That usually takes about 2 months. So that's the goal, to have those completed and begin the process.
And whatever the level of further private partnership or government funding to be contributed to the $100 million price tag, it's clear that the Straightville development could have an impact on student housing and, in the long term, housing in general for the Strait area and beyond. At the Nova Scotia Community College Strait Area Campus for Telile 24/7, I'm Adam Cook. And still on the housing front, we have an update from the chair of the Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition. She is Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat. Here is her address on the future of the Housing Matters Coalition and some of its activities at the latest Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council. And an advisory before we begin, this footage came courtesy of new OWL technology that has been introduced at the Richmond Council chambers for its meetings. It was not filmed by Telile Community Television. So once again, here's Richmond Warden Amanda Mumbercat.
At this point in the game, the coalition has decided to move from sort of less of a monthly meeting to more of a quarterly meeting, and looking at planning for ways that we can take more advantage of the huge brain trust that we are able to gather around that table on a regular basis. I am really pleased that in May, we're planning our next meeting as an in-person gathering that will be here in Richmond County in the Lucedale Lions Club. So that's pretty exciting. It'll be an opportunity to re-energize and kind of refocus our efforts with that group. We'll have several project updates, including an update hopefully from both the group forming a provincial nonprofit housing association, but also the Port Hawkesbury project to work on, specifically developments to the town, but then in generally regional nonprofit association that would be formalize kind of the housing efforts that are underway in the region. So we may be looking to council or work with staff potentially for some small amount of funds to support buying some lunch for folks to make sure that they're well fed and can they're firing on all cylinders when we gather here in Richmond County. So stay tuned for that. I'll start by working with you, Troy, on that, and then bring back any update to council.
Over the past couple of weeks here on Telile Community Television, we've been telling you about new government measures designed to promote healthcare professional recruitment efforts in specific communities, namely the Mi'kmaq and Acadian portions of Nova Scotia. But how are things going in terms of bringing new doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals to the Strait area as a whole? To get the answers, here's a presentation made by healthcare recruitment navigator Gina McDonald of Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health. She made her presentation at the latest Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council on Monday evening. Here's that presentation for you now.
So just to give a little bit of a recap, this is what we endeavor to do with Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health. We endeavor to promote Cape Breton South, to showcase our unique attributes, to engage with the public, to build networks and generate recruitment leads, to recruit qualified healthcare professionals, and to also retain them. So the ultimate goal is that Cape Breton South community members can access the health services they need. And sometimes that doesn't just include recruitment and retention. And we have been doing a lot of good work this year with Nova Scotia Health to look at, in the absence of high recruitment numbers, what we can do to help people in the community access the healthcare services that they need. So a little bit of a recap. I started in November of 2021, at which point a lot of the agenda for the next couple of months was already set. but I did execute some of the projects that had already been planned. So the first big one was the Community of Care Awards Gala, which was held in April of 2022. This was our first post-COVID event, so it was still limited numbers, still a lot of masking. It was well attended for the amount of leeway that we had to let people come and join us. And it was extremely successful online because we were able to share with the community and have them participate in the congratulations of all of the award winners. So a lot of the local healthcare professionals that were honored were extremely enthusiastic about this event going forward again this year, which it's going to. So we had we had about 10 winners in different categories, and it was a very successful night all the way around. So we also have done throughout the year recognition activities by profession of different healthcare professionals. So there's a nurses week and there is a paramedics week. And so we've used those particular weeks on the calendar to give recognition to those groups. We've covered as much territory within Richmond County and the town of Port Hastings as possible. It's not possible to get to every single site, but we try to spread the thanks and appreciation as far as we can. We do that in the form of coffee, which is appreciated everywhere we go. Food, and we also had some elementary school students make up some cards for Nurses Week, which was probably the most well-received initiative that we did. They all really, really enjoyed that at the Strait-Richmond. Another one is Doctors' Day. So doctors have their own special day, and we were able to visit all of the doctors in Cape Breton South and deliver some nice cupcakes and just go in and say thanks. And they're all very busy, but they were all very appreciative to have somebody come in and just show that that they were being recognized for their special day. We did get 2 new physicians in Cape Breton South over the course of the last year. We got Dr. Attenborough in the Ayrshire Clinic September of 2022, and then we just had Dr. Shrestha start at the Port Hawkesbury Clinic just within the last couple of weeks. Both of these gentlemen have come to us from the Practice Ready Assessment Program, which has been very successful in this area, and we're optimistic that it will continue to be successful. We do have tentatively 2 more positions coming in September of 2023 from the PRAP program, and we're hoping that we can qualify a few more local positions to be preceptors so that we're able to welcome more of the conditional licensed positions into the communities. So the Dalhousie Family Medicine Retreat and Job Fair took place in St. John, New Brunswick in September. I was one of 47 presenters there, so there was a big crowd, universities, municipalities, different private companies. There were a lot of people there to represent their area, to try and converse with the different residents and convince them that they were the place to go. I was there with 9 other community navigators from all around the province, and we were really able to draw on each other's ideas because we don't feel like we're competing against each other, but rather that we are using each other's experiences and strengths to the advantage of all of the other places. So that was an extremely useful event in terms of the networking that was possible to see what was working for other communities around Nova Scotia. The Business of Medicine course was probably the project that I was the most proud of from last year. It was an outstanding event that we consider to be an extremely successful event. Using some of the contacts that were made at the Dalhousie Family Medicine Fair, as well as one of the contacts here at the Ayrshire Clinic, we welcomed some family medicine residents, both first and second year, to the Bredor Lakes Inn in St. Peters for a retreat, and we had them there for the whole weekend. We had them take a course at the Lordways Clinic from Doctors Nova Scotia that involved how to start medical practice, how to onboard patients, about insurance, about compensation models and things like that. So it was a really attractive draw for them to learn all of those things, but we were really using it as a recruitment event. And that's exactly what it was, because these people who came to the community where they were stunned that they had never heard of us, but they couldn't believe that they had driven by that many times and didn't realize exactly what we had to offer. We took them on site tours all over Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. We took them on a trail hike through the trails in Port Hawkesbury. We took them to all the clinics, to the Strait-Richmond. They met lots of doctors. We had a physician's welcome reception the Friday night of the retreat that was extremely successful. I don't ever remember there being that many local physicians in one room at one time. And it really was all of them. And it was so nice to see them relax outside of their office environment, to be able to stand around with all of their colleagues. It was a private reception, so it wasn't open to the public. They were able to discuss, what it was like to practice in Richmond County and in Port Hawkesbury with the residents that were there. And it was something that I'm really looking forward to with this year's event, because that was probably, to me, the physician's welcome reception was the highlight of the business of medicine course.
And was that the group you visited Point Michaud with?
Point Michaud was
different. Okay.
That was the next day.
Okay.
So we did do, the following day, we rented a bus from Strait Area Transit, and we took them to Port Hawkesbury. We did the whole tour of the town. We took them to eat at the Fleur-de-Lis, showed them the Civic Center. We took them to the Strait-Richmond, and then we circled back and went to the Lordman's Clinic where they took their course. And then we decided to go at sunset to Point Michaud Beach. They were floored. They couldn't say enough about it. All of these people were they couldn't believe that they had driven by and not given us the attention that we deserved. So since then, we've had meetings with every one of the people who have come here. They've taken meetings either in Richmond County or in Port Hawkesbury to discuss either doing a rotation of their residency or opening up a practice. And so we're really optimistic that will pan out. Just the word of mouth that they gave to their fellow residents, I think, will probably go a long way this year to having even more of them participate, because we do plan on doing the same thing this year. We're thinking of doing it in a different location so that we're able to kind of spread the love all over Richmond County. But I think that the same kind of format, having them here for the whole weekend, showing them as much real estate as we can, it would really go a long way to welcoming them back, hopefully, in the future. Another event that I attended was the Navigators Network Retreat. That was in Tantallon just about 2 months ago. That was where all of the community navigators from around Nova Scotia, the ones that are employed by various organizations, where we came together to discuss what was working and what wasn't. We came together to discuss the upcoming funding that we had all consulted with the Office of Healthcare Professional Recruitment. So we had a lot of discussion about that and exactly how best to use the resources that we were being given. And to hear what was working for other places and how you could make that work for your own organization and your own position was invaluable. It was only 2 days, and I probably learned more about this position and how to do this job in those 2 days than I could have had I taken the course for 6 months. So it's always good to be able to draw on the people who are doing the same thing as you, and I found that to be extremely valuable. So in addition to the bigger kind of initiatives that we undertake, we also do engagement and appreciation activities as needed. So if we know of a student who's graduating or somebody who has a special accomplishment, we try to engage with the public. We try to engage with the new physicians and their families. We drop them off food. We will take them coffee. We will take them out for coffee. We'll do whatever we need to do to make them welcome. And that looks like a lot of different things at a lot of different times, but we're able to recognize that everybody is going to have different needs in terms of how they are shown appreciation. And so we try to do that and tailor it to everyone. So aside from the different initiatives that we've done over the past year, there are a lot of other components to this job that I wasn't even aware of when I took it, but that have presented themselves in the meantime. We have a joint health services working group between representatives from Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health and a lot of the senior leadership from the Nova Scotia Health Eastern Zone. And we have been working together to figure out exactly what Cape Breton South community members need in terms of healthcare delivery. So we held an engagement session, 2 engagement sessions actually, to discuss with stakeholders what they thought could be brought to the area that would improve healthcare services. And we took all of that back to Nova Scotia Health, who then put forward a business case on our behalf. And so we're just waiting to hear the results of that officially from Nova Scotia Health, but we are very optimistic that it will look very good for this area, what Nova Scotia Health has put forward on our behalf. The Practice Ready Assessment Program, virtual community introductions, I think are going to continue to be extremely important to this area because we've had so much success with it, and virtual seems to be the way that things are going now, as opposed to getting all of the people to come to the community. So we really have to figure out a way to make the virtual presentations as effective as possible. And I think it's worked up to this point because we have had matches for every presentation that's been done, and actually had 2 matches for this past presentation. So we at the Navigators Retreat had a really good working session with the director of the Practice Ready Assessment Program, who was able to tell us which direction that program was going in and how best we could support them and how best they could support us. So I anticipate that we will still have a lot of work with the Practice Ready Assessment and the defined license applicants. There are other community networking groups. There are program development initiatives. There's lots of different components to this job and to this organization that I spend a whole lot of time doing. And I'm not going to give you a running list, but I have included a copy of the logic model for everybody to have a look at. It's like 20 pages long, so we're not going to go line by line, but it gives kind of a good picture as far as what our goals are and what exactly we're doing to meet them. So 2023 is going to be a good year, but it's going to be a different year because in the past we haven't had the guarantee from the government that we were going to get the type of financial support that is required to be able to pull off the bigger initiatives. The bottom line is that you can have as many plans as you want, but if you don't have the money to pull them off, then what good is it? So about 14 months ago, the Office of Healthcare Professional Recruitment started to meet privately with 4 or 5 different community navigators from around the province to figure out how best to distribute a fund that they had to different communities all around the province, and how to do that equitably and how to do it appropriately when you consider all of the different circumstances of each one of the communities. So after those consultations were held, a few months went by, and then we finally got word that they were designing a grant program, and that took place in early December. So everybody had to submit funding proposals, which we did. We submitted in December of 2022. They were very project specific, so we couldn't just apply for $50,000 and have them say, here you go, I hope you do a good job. It had to be very, very project specific. We had to submit specific projects that would or would not qualify. For those specific projects, we had to submit specific budgets. We had to submit estimates for the things that we didn't have budget items on. And it was a very intense 2 weeks of hard work getting your entire next year put together in a package for the government to hopefully fund it. So it was, they've given us a lot of leeway in terms of how we're able to kind of move our schedules around just because of the amount of time that we had or didn't have to plan. And we anticipate that we will be able to go through with the schedule that we put forward to them, because they did approve us for almost $75,000 worth of project-specific funding. So I did include Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health calendar of events. This is tentative at this point because we haven't even had time to confirm everything. But this is how we kind of see it taking shape. We're trying to spread things out as much as possible to make it possible for me to be able to work on all of them and to be able to spread it out around Richmond and Port Hawkesbury. But the big highlights are the 4 large project funding items that we had, which were the Business of Medicine Retreat for 2023, which will take place hopefully in late August at the suggestion of the medical residents to ensure the most participation because of their schedules. We have the Community of Care Awards Gala of 2023, which is taking place in a month. We have a radio campaign on 101.5 The Hawk that will really kind of serve as a multi-purpose radio campaign to give appreciation and recognition to healthcare workers, to advertise some of the initiatives that we have, Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health has going on, to advertise the mobile clinics at the Strait-Richmond. We're able to use our airtime for what we need to use it for and for what will help us with our recruitment and retention plans. We also will have a professional promotional video that will probably take place. The first consultation is supposed to be in June. The purpose of that promotional video is because travel is so expensive and because there are so many different career fairs and conferences that we could be represented at, we figured that it's a good idea to send a professional promotional video there instead of sending me, because it's just too cost prohibitive to be able to send somebody to all of the conferences that you want to send them on. So we will be giving a copy to Nova Scotia Health, who will be taking that video around the province and around the country and to international job fairs when they go. It will be available online. It will be available in snippets. It will be available just about everywhere. We plan to make the absolute most of the resources that we have and to really use that to promote Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. So in addition to the large projects, there are a number of small projects, community visits, which are just the best way to get somebody to like Richmond County or the town of Port Hawkesbury is to get them here. And so we plan to have 5 community visits, which are just finding medical residents and people who are interested in coming here and paying for them to stay overnight, taking them to dinner, and doing what we did for the Business of Medicine people, which is just showing them around, because that seems to have gone the longest way and that seems to be the best kind of use of resources. So we do have funding to do 5 of those. 3 of them are already scheduled with residents that I've been in contact with anyway. And so we're hoping to be able to have 2 more come across our plate before the year's end. Site visits are those with Nova Scotia Health to be able to accompany them and to add to whatever kind of agenda that they have to be able to kind of contribute to that in our own way. Staff appreciation events, local recruitment events. We have a barbecue at the Strait-Richmond Hospital. We were hoping to have one at St. Anne's Centre. We plan on doing an event with the Richmond Villa. We have, as you can see from the calendar, we have lots going on. So all of these different projects have specific budgets attached to them. We have to fall within that budget or cover the rest ourselves. And anything that we don't spend, we give back to the government. So other than our plan and our calendar of events, what I have to do now is to secure funding for 2023 for the operational costs and the recruitment and retention initiatives that are not eligible for the government funding. And there were quite a few of them. They had very specific parameters as to what was going to be covered and what wasn't. The maximum amount that you were allowed to apply for was $75,000, and I think we got 74,280 something. So we really went for like every single dollar that we could. But at the end of the day, they won't pay for anything outside of the province. They won't pay for any kind of travel, any kind of housing, any operational expenses and things like that. So this is what we need money for that we do not have money for. So my salary and the other administrative costs of the King's Memorial Clinic. Retention activities, those are very fluid because we don't know what the next year is going to look like. So this is an optimistic projection of what they might look like. We are hoping that there will be more locum activity at the Strait-Richmond and preparing to be able to support those local positions because the housing seems to be an issue. So I'm going to leave you with the slideshow, and this gives a rundown of everything that we have and everything that we need. And I will thank you very much for your consideration and be back next year to give you another update.
Maybe I'll jump in, just the radio campaign. I'm hopeful that we might be able to use that as an opportunity to encourage more people to get involved with the activities of the group of Cape Breton South. I'm thinking specifically the business community for when we do want to showcase the best of our area and provide the welcome basket with the oat cakes and the seafood chowder recipe and all that good stuff, right? So I think, is that something you could see?
Absolutely, and we have free reign as to what we want to promote. So it's a matter of securing the funding to make sure that we have the time.
Right.
And now we have a whole year to plan what we'll use that time for. So as I've explained to everybody at Cape Breton South, I am open to suggestions for what all of these activities are going to look like. This was put together, I don't want to say hastily because I spent a lot of time making sure that it was done properly, but it was put together on a very tight timeline. And I know that I didn't get the kind of input that I otherwise would have sought out. So all of my plans and all of the schedule is open to any suggestion from anybody on council or anybody in the community.
Great, thank you. And so your ask this evening, I saw a $78,000. I don't know if we could go back to that slide. Is that possible? There we go. Thank you. So that would be between the two municipalities. You'd be looking for that level of support
between the two municipalities and with private donations from different stakeholders in the community. So we are hoping to be able to get the 78,000. If we don't, then it will limit, the number of these activities that we'll be able to participate in. But the two municipalities and one or two private donations will be what we need to kind of really keep the train rolling.
Okay, great.
And both are being asked for the $30,000 commitment.
Okay. That's an $18,000 gap.
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking you, is the 30,000 enough? I mean, we've got 75,000 from the province of Nova Scotia, and I want to make sure that we make the most of that investment. And
I want desperately to say, no, it's not enough and have you give me everything that you have. I think that if we had $70,000, the virtual fairs aren't a necessity. They're just kind of a want.
Okay.
So the necessity money is basically about $70,000.
Okay.
And I think that between the municipality, the town of Port Hawkesbury, and a little bit of sweet talking on my part, that they should be able to be okay with that.
Okay, great. Okay, and this is obviously something we would defer to our budget conversation, councillors, if you're okay with that. But I would offer any other questions for Gina. This has been a huge initiative for us. So.
No, just for me, just the radio campaign, brought up the radio campaign. Is that just simply one station, like 101 for the hog? Is that where you're focusing on? Or is there any other?
It's what I'm focusing on right now.
Okay.
To be honest, I hadn't even thought of any other radio station, but as soon as you said that, I thought, well, I didn't think of any other radio station. So that's, that's a conversation that could be had, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, not to cut you off, I was thinking the same thing, because we have the
C2 radio.
C2 radio here, and there's also a radio station in Bogadeck.
Radio.
So
Right.
if you're gonna cover both, then it'd be.
Yeah, and that's the type of flexibility that I was talking about. So we do have it for a radio campaign, but it doesn't necessarily have to go to all one place. As long as it's used for that purpose,
Right.
we can spread it around however is going to be the most useful for us.
Yeah, perhaps we could seek a French language partner to help us develop some French content.
I already
for
have
C2 radio.
Marlene, she's at the ready. She's
Oh,
waiting
wow.
for us to.
That's great.
Marlene LeBlanc, yeah,
Okay,
she's
cool.
ready. She's ready to help out.
Yeah, and same for me for radio. We could find a Mi'kmaq partner,
Yeah.
who might be interested in willing to help. That's a great suggestion. Councillor. And I guess we would be remiss in not thanking the Dr. Kingston Memorial Health Center for being the host for this project as well, right? So
Absolutely.
they do a great job, as always. Okay, so we'll defer that budget request to our budget deliberations.
Just a year ago, COVID-19 restrictions were lifted all across Nova Scotia. That played a big impact on one of the biggest tourism seasons Cape Breton has experienced in 5 years, even exceeding pre-pandemic levels. To get the skinny on this data and also what things are looking like for the tourism sector in Cape Breton going forward, here is the CEO of Destination Cape Breton Association, Terry Smith, making a presentation to Richmond Municipal Council's latest Committee of the Whole meeting.
Tonight, I'm here to talk about our plans for the upcoming year and share with you a little bit of what this past year was like. Just want to acknowledge we're in Mi'kmaq, Mi'kmaq name for Cape Breton Island, one of the 7 districts of Mi'kmaq, the ancestral unceded home of the Mi'kmaq people. So some results to start. This is a chart of our last 5 years of the traffic to our website. And on my screen, the last bar is cut off, but can you guys see it?
Yes.
But okay. We hit record numbers this year, up 32% over last year, 1.43 million sessions. So that was fantastic. It was also a record year for clicks from our website out to operator websites, and that gives us a sense that people are really serious about making their plans. So that's something that we look for as well. By market, it's the last 5 years, you can really kind of see the impact of the pandemic in part of this slide, but we went a lot heavier into Ontario and Quebec this year, which are typically our 2 biggest markets, along with the Maritimes. Ontario, our website traffic was almost 2.5 times what it was in 2019. Quebec was almost double. The Maritimes was down from the past 2 years because during the pandemic years, we placed more focus on regional markets, but still well ahead of where it was in 2019. In terms of converting that interest that we saw on the website to visits, our registered room nights sold was the best year in the past 5 years, up 5% over 2019. And it may have been even a little bit higher if it hadn't been for Fiona coming through. So Fiona has it did fill a lot of hotels in some areas with service workers and stuff like that had to come in. So it's a double-edged sword there, but there were parts of the island that are really kind of knocked out for a period of time. So anyway, it was a really good year. The other thing that we measure is short-term rental unit nights sold. This is mostly Airbnb, and that was by far a much bigger year over the last 5. So they were at a record level as well. So that's just shows you the results, but all in all, in terms of recovery after the pandemic, it was really, really strong. So now I'm going to go on and tell you a bit about what we're planning for the coming year. Before getting into that, I just want to touch on the forecast. So if you look at most of the economists in the country, they're all saying that they're projecting slower growth this year. They're not using the R word, at least not right now, but slower growth, but still growth. And at Destination Canada, they did a forecast back in the fall. They're basically saying, yes, we have inflation, we have geopolitical issues like what's going on in Ukraine, but there's a resilience in travel right now. From the pandemic, there was this pent-up demand to travel, and we believe that there's still some of that remaining. So, I can just anecdotally, a lot of the operators that I talk to are telling me that their advanced bookings are in some cases the best they've ever been. So we're looking forward to a pretty good year. So our goals, continue to enhance the brand of the island. We're going to optimize domestic visitation. We're going to focus our efforts marketing wise on, within Canada. Tourism Nova Scotia will go a bit into the States. And we're gonna work with partners to mitigate supply side constraints, things like the workforce shortage. And we're also going to make strides to become a more sustainable and inclusive destination. In terms of research, we know based on past research that our visitors, we can describe them in buckets of psychographic, demographic, geographic. From a psychographic standpoint, Destination Canada developed this program that put people, based on their behaviors and what they're interested in doing travel-wise, into different categories. We target two that research tells us come here: authentic experiencers, cultural explorers. They are people that really want to experience our natural beauty, want to get outside in the outdoors. They also want to experience our rich culture, eat local food, and they want to rub shoulders with local residents as well. So they're a really good fit with who we are as people and as a destination. Demographics, so not much change here, but we target two primary segments. One is empty nest couples that are 45 plus, and then younger adults that are post their education, but pre having families at a point where they're working and they have disposable income and they are really interested in travel. From a geographic standpoint, I mentioned our three key markets: Ontario, Maritimes, Quebec. We're going to dive into Western Canada a little bit as well this year.
Just want to say that's a lovely photo of the groundswell there. Terry, thank you for including that.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got some more of that. Research. One of the things that has been a challenge for us is that we don't have a lot of Cape Breton Island specific data. A lot of what's out there is provincial, but there are new platforms that utilize new technologies. We're working with CBU right now on looking at a couple of them, but we're also trying to advocate with the province to help us, because these platforms are not cheap, to work with all of the regions of the province and give us better intelligence upon which to make decisions. So that's one of the things that we're focused on. Product innovation is another area that we work in. A couple of the highlights, we're working with Mi'kmaq partners in their development. We play a supporting role there. They take the lead and we come alongside and try to support them. One of the things, we partner with NSCC, which is the Nova Scotia Indigenous Tourism Enterprise Network. And so we're working with them very closely. Another initiative, we want to elevate the overall experience on the island that the visitor receives, and that's something we'll be focusing on. Continuing to grow shoulder and winter seasons. One of the things we did this past year that our initial numbers, it was a pilot project, but it was waterfall season in the spring as a way to try to encourage spring visitation. And we're going to do that again. One of the waterfalls that's featured there, Grand River Falls. So we will be building upon what we did last year, hopefully trying to drive more people to come here to experience our wonderful waterfalls. And developing niche markets with growth potential. One that would be touching on your county would be sport fishing. So we're partnering with CEPI, the Collaborative Environmental Planning Initiative.
Yes.
Yeah, I always have to think on sport fishing in the Door Lake. So that's one that we're looking at, and there's a lot of development that has to happen there in terms of developing guides and so forth. But it's something that we're starting to get into. In terms of marketing, there's another groundswell.
Yeah.
Path to purchase. This is basically our marketing plan in a slide. But I want to just highlight that the vast majority of what we do is digital marketing these days, and then content development. And then the content is almost always shared digitally, so that kind of feeds into it. But the vast majority of what we do is digital. Couple of highlights, continuing that strong focus on digital. One of the things I showed you, we had record traffic to our website. We're going to look to try to maintain that, but increase the engagement on our site. So have people come back to our site more often. So hopefully we convert more of those people that come to the site into visits. Leveraging technology is something that we're looking at as well. So we're working on a project right now that hopefully we'll be launching very soon that will personalize our website experience for a person when they come to our site, depending upon what their interests are. We're reducing our investment in printed materials, mainly because of sustainability, an effort to become more sustainable and putting it more into digital resources. And we'll also be enhancing our brand identity. We're going to develop Mi'kmaq, French, Gaelic versions of our logo, but we're also going to do seasonal treatments of the logo as well. Events. So one of the things that as we go to 2024, and hopefully we will have a 3% levy that applies to all fixed roof accommodations. We want to focus on things that can grow our industry in the shoulder and winter seasons. And one of the key things is events. And this is something that can touch all parts of the island. So we're going to lay a lot of the groundwork this year, looking at Events Cape Breton, which is a project that we have run. Used to have more dedicated resources. Our funding for that was discontinued, but we're going to work on replacing it, but really evolving it. So focusing on attraction of sporting or cultural events, working with partners on the creation of new events, and then working with current event organizers to discuss if they'd like to innovate their event, to focus more on bringing people in from outside of our regions and so forth. Continue our community festival events program. That's a program that ACOA funds and all of the municipalities on the island contribute to it. So that's going to be continuing as well. Positioning the island as a premier small meetings and corporate retreats destination is something we're working on as well. Destination development. So I would have given all of you a copy of our Rise Again 2030 destination development plan. So I know you keep that close by in your desk and refer to it religiously. But we're continuing to work on that. The 2030 vision, I'm not gonna read all this, but it's an ambitious but an attainable vision. So within that, there are a number of things that we're going to prioritize for this year. Continuing to work with partners to address the workforce shortage. So we've done workforce shortage solution sessions around the island. We had a great turnout in St. Peter's for one of those sessions. Where we just had a recruitment readiness webinar with some partners. We're working on a mature workers campaign with the Tourism Industry Association. And there are a number of other activities that we're working on there as well. We're going to develop a sustainable tourism plan for the island. And we're also going to focus on enhancing the position of the island as a marine tourism destination. So we've got a partnership that's been formed. There have been iterations of this happening in the past, but we're bringing it back to life. But there's a partnership formed with St. Peter's Marina, Waterfront Quebec, and the Benyon Marina, and we'll look at bringing some more partners on board as well. But we're going to elevate the destination as a boating destination.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, for coming in.
Thank you.
And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a special thank you to the Municipality of the County of Richmond for providing Telile Community Television with the footage from its latest Committee of the Whole meeting. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour, or you'd just like to make suggestions for future editions of Telile 24/7, feel free to contact me directly by phone or email, or you can send your suggestions to Telile Community Television in Arishat. And be sure to follow Telile on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.